Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Addis. Welcome to my first ever Three Things I Learned Last Week, broadcasting live from sunny Ocean City, New Jersey, because I actually happen to be on vacation this week. But what better time to start a LinkedIn Live broadcast than when you have nothing else going on? I thank everybody who is joining us or joining me right now for tuning in and for your support. I know a lot of people have really been cheering me on as I lead up to this, so thank you so much. A little bit about what I'm thinking with this broadcast, and then I'll jump into the three things I want to share with everybody about what I learned last week. So as I mentioned, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Robin Addis. I am the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer at Legal Internet Solutions Incorporated. We are a digital agency that specializes in law firms and legal services providers. We've been around for about 23 years. We provide web design development, search engine marketing, outsourced legal marketing services, LinkedIn and social media management, and a slew of other things. So if you don't know us, check us out. We actually just launched our new website and brand a couple of weeks ago, which we'll be talking about a little bit later today too. In my role, I have kind of a mouthful of a title. I oversee the operations of the agency, so all the things, finance, HR, operations, whatever. And I also have an internal and an external facing marketing and business development role. So for the agency internally, overseeing our brand, our marketing campaigns and tactics, et cetera, as well as doing some business development activities. And then for a number of our outsourced legal marketing services clients, I serve as a outsourced chief marketing officer to those firms. So about the program. Why three things I learned last week? I love to learn. I love to learn new things. Whenever my kids ask me a question and I don't know the answer, we look it up, and we are always learning. So I figured out that if I'm always loving to learn and learn new things, probably other people feel that way too. I also am often teased that when I find something new that I love, I evangelize it to anybody and everybody who will listen. So I foresee a lot of what I'm going to talk about on this show will be about things that products, tools, et cetera, that I love and that I'm interested in and I think are pretty cool. For the record, there's no paid promotion of any product. I'm not being asked to promote any of these products. It's just, I figured them out, I discovered them, and I think they're pretty awesome, and I want to share them with you. Another thing about the show, if you noticed, the thumbnail has a prism image. It's an image of multicolor. We call it the prism image internally. And we use it on our new website, specifically in the section where we talk about our diversity statement. So I wanted to use that in this show because I hope in the future to bring in a range of diverse perspectives to talk about what they're learning and share some things with my audience. It is really important to me. I believe deeply in diversity of thought and opinion. And I really believe deeply that certainty breeds ignorance. So the more that I can learn and the more that I can expand my knowledge by inviting diverse perspectives, it's really important to me. So that's what that image is all about. I will try very hard to take questions if there are any. I am making no promises. I am a one-woman show right now. I'm producing this on my own. So bear with me if you do have questions. If I don't get to them, please feel free to send me a direct message in LinkedIn Messenger or send me an email. My email address is robin@legalisi.com. So today I want to talk about the three things I learned last week. First of all, I'm going to talk about getting started with live streaming because that was an adventure. I also want to talk about something, not so much that I learned last week, but I sort of had this revelation about quality versus quantity content on LinkedIn. And then lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about post-launch of our website and brand for Lisi, what I'm learning coming from that experience, because it is the first website I've ever been a part of a complete overhaul of, and same with a brand. So there's definitely a lot of learning for me in that. So talking about getting started with LinkedIn live streaming. LinkedIn live streaming. So you probably know this, but you have to apply to be a LinkedIn Live broadcaster. I'm sure that has something to do with they don't just want anybody going live on LinkedIn at any time like you can on some other platforms. I applied to be a LinkedIn Live broadcaster about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was approved about a month ago. And I've been sitting since the day I got that email saying I was approved, saying, gosh, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And one morning last week, I was playing around in StreamYard, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. I was playing it around in our StreamYard portal, trying to figure out how to set up a broadcast scheduled in the future, et cetera. And I scheduled one. I knew that I was scheduling one, but I wasn't really thinking of the ramifications of that. So I scheduled today's program, not actually thinking that I was going to be going live on the Monday of my vacation. But here I am. And so once I realized that it was posted on LinkedIn and it was posted on Facebook, et cetera, it was sort of the kick in the butt that I needed to actually make myself make this happen. So no more hemming and hawing. I ripped the Band-Aid and here I am today. Speaking of tools, I use a number of tools. The first one is StreamYard, and I'm going to give a shout out to Rob Cates, who was the person who turned me on to StreamYard. Rob, if you don't know him, is a very skilled videographer, video editor, and a very generous contributor to the Legal Marketing Association. He actually just helped produce a program that we at Lisi put on last week for the Philadelphia local group. So thank you to Rob for turning me on to StreamYard. This that I have up on the screen, it's just a screenshot of what my StreamYard instance looked like setting this up. There are a number of things you can do. You can brand your live stream. You can include logos and you can include videos like my intro, my hype video, which I was very excited about. And you can set everything up and then go live straight from there. So it is a really, really useful tool. There are other tools out there. To be quite honest, I didn't investigate any of the other tools because I took Rob's recommendation, and StreamYard is really cutting the cheese for us. I also use a product called Canva to do a lot of our graphic design. It's also where we do some simple video, for our social media, for Lisi's social media, we do some simple videos, some simple graphic design. Obviously, we have a very talented creative director, Leslie McLean, on the team, and she uses the whole suite of Adobe products. I have no idea what I'm doing with that. So Canva is just good enough for people like me who are good enough to be dangerous when it comes to graphic design. Some other things that when you get ready to go, with your first live stream, some things that you want to make sure you're set up for are accessibility. Facebook and LinkedIn do allow for auto-generated captions. YouTube, last I checked, it automatically includes auto-generated captions for channels that have over 10,000 subscribers. So certainly, if you're going live, if you're able to set it up so that you have auto-generated captions, that's the best situation in order to make it inclusive for your entire audience, hopefully. But if you don't set it up for auto-generated captions, but you want to use your video after the fact, make sure that you have burn-in captions or burn-in subtitles into your video. And here's why. So places like YouTube or Vimeo, they might have auto captioning as an option that the user can switch on and off, which is fine. There are some debates out there on the internet about how accessible or how much those auto-generated captions actually meet requirements. But also if you take that video and you splice it up and you put it onto social media, something like 95% of video viewers on social media are viewing it on mute. So if your video doesn't have captions and they're watching you on mute, they have no idea what you're saying. So make sure that you do put captions in, both for accessibility and also for your reach, because you want to make sure people know what you're talking about. Obviously, when you're thinking about live streaming, you want to think about what your content is, and you want to think about what your format is. My audience in particular is on LinkedIn, so my #1 channel of choice would be LinkedIn. But sometimes, you might want to be an Instagram broadcaster or only on your YouTube channel. Right now, I'm actually broadcasting live to the Lisi Facebook page, the Lisi YouTube page, and also my personal LinkedIn. We're just going to kind of try it out and see what works. So live streaming is interesting, and it is overwhelming a little bit, but I'm glad that I just sort of dove into it and I'm giving it a try. If you're going to get started with live streaming and you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. If you are doing live streaming and you're not really figuring, you're having some roadblocks, reach out to me too. Not that I necessarily know the answer, but I'd love to figure it out with you. The other thing, next thing I should say that I want to talk about, quality versus quantity content on LinkedIn. So I was talking with a client of mine last week and I had this revelation. I talk about content pillars a lot. So my content pillars are digital marketing, women supporting women, and leadership. And so digital marketing is everything to do with what I do at Lisi: social media, content marketing, CRM, marketing operations, all of those things fall within that pillar. And that is what I'm going to call my quality content. It is the content that I largely want people to engage with, that I want people to absorb, because it's what I do in my career. My quantity content, and this might seem sort of backwards, my quantity content is more of my personal stuff, because my quantity content is more likely to have a broader reach. More people might engage with it more quickly, which helps expand the reach of that post or that video, etc. So it exposes me to a larger audience. And when I think about quality versus quantity content, I think about it sort of like a seesaw or a balancing act. So you have to have both, and you have to shift back and forth between both when you're coming up with the content for your content calendar on LinkedIn. I want sometimes to have very high quality content that speaks to my audience and what I do for a living. And then I want to balance that. I might have really high engagement with that, but low views. And I want to balance that with the quantity content, which is going to have very high reach, maybe 7,000, 8,000 people viewing that piece of content, but much lower relative engagement. I use an app online tool called Shield app. It is a way for me to aggregate all of my personal LinkedIn statistics in one place. And I have all of my content filtered by tags. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you know that I've got my Follow Friday series. And so, for example, my Follow Friday series is actually quantity content, because as you can see on here, I've got several thousand people viewing that content when I post it. And I mean, obviously the first reason I post about Follow Friday is because I'm obsessed with all these women that I'm posting about, and that's awesome. But it does fall in the category of quantity content. It's got very, very high reach, but fine engagement. It's actually average, just slightly above average engagements, 2-3%. But it is more about the number of people that are seeing it and the number of people that are exposed to that content, as opposed to if we look at my quality content, which again might seem kind of bizarre here, but my quality content is the content that's about the things that I do in my business, the training that I provide, the things that I want to be known for in terms of my professional career. So overall, this, sometimes it has over 1,000 views. Sometimes it's really, really low views. These up here actually happen to be articles that I posted on LinkedIn, but they have really, really high engagement. So that's like more quality, better people actually interacting with that content. So think about that as you're coming up with your content pillars and you're coming up with your content calendar. How can you balance back and forth between the two? Because the more people you get eyes on your quantity content, the more likely those same people you might want to be targeting in your business actually have an opportunity to be exposed to your quality content. And the last thing I want to talk about today is our Lisi website and brand post launch. It was, I'm sure if you've watched our news, views, and to-dos episode that was dropped last week, it was a whirlwind getting the Lisi brand and website updated. About 12 weeks before we actually launched, we launched on July 7th, 12 weeks before that, I think not even a full 12 weeks, I turned to my team and I said, how could we possibly launch our new website by the beginning of July? I think actually I said July 1st specifically. And I'm sure everybody on the other side of their screen sort of cringed for a second, but they jumped in head first, and we spent 12 weeks writing every piece, every word that went on that website and really going full force ahead with the design. Along the way, we started a list, probably I'd say starting about the halfway point, 6 weeks into that rush, we started a list of all the things we were going to phase out. So we had must-haves for launch and the things that we wanted to phase out after the fact. And it was a learning experience for me because if you watch some of our content leading up to it, we talked about learning that don't let the perfect be the enemy of good. And I am somebody who really struggles with that. Sometimes I want it to be perfect day one, and it's hard for me to let go of some of the little things. But having that, okay, we're not going to have this day one, but we're going to have this phased approach, really gave me an opportunity to know that we are going to get it perfect, or as perfect as it can be in an iterative way, but we're just not going to have it the minute it launches. We're going to have to think about what our priorities are. And one of the ways that we're doing that is we're using a tool called Hotjar. Hotjar is something that you can install on your website, and it can actually track how people are interacting with your content, how they're interacting with the design of your page, the UX, and with your content. So we're able to see for a period of time, we're going to install it maybe for a month, I guess, and we're going to be able to see over time, what are people getting hung up with? What did we think was a great idea, but nobody is really catching the drift of what we intended with how the functionality works or how the design works. And that will help us prioritize our phase 2 list. And then we'll endeavor to kind of do that next wave of design and development changes. So you're never done. My colleague Ray always says, this isn't a printed brochure that has to be perfect the day it gets launched. It goes up. The next day you want to change a picture, you can. The next day you want to change some words, you can. It is something that is a living and breathing marketing piece. And as such, it should be, not just because you're figuring out how people are interacting with it, but you also want to change the content of your website and sort of the way people interact with it potentially on a somewhat regular basis, so it's not stale. People are kind of excited about the things that you're presenting. So lots of lessons learned coming out of the website and brand launch, but that was the number one thing that I really took away from it. On a funny note, just as a bonus 4 thing, I also learned last week that Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez are back together because I haven't watched the news for a year. So that's like my bonus number 4 thing that I learned last week. I was very excited about it. But that's all I have for today. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in and for being a part of this with me. I'm excited to see where this goes. If you have things that you learned and you'd love to talk about, maybe you want to join me or you just want to share some information for me to talk about, again, reach out to me. I want to hear from you. I'm so excited to be starting this, and I really appreciate all your support, everybody. Thanks so much and have a great day.